We are live. We are live in this moment. Let's check. Let's check if we are live. Yes, we are live. So, welcome everybody. I think we have one more guest, is Mahad Nayev. Please, Mahad, show yourself. Hello, Mahad, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
I'll show myself. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had my class, so I'm just walking back to my
Okay. Yeah,
office from my
because
class.
Amalie was happy to have you with us in this webinar. So I've invited Mahad Nayer. Is okay. Unfortunately, I don't have many information about him, but maybe you will introduce yourself briefly, and we go when we go ahead. Maria will present Amalie, reading her abstract of her lecture and the short bio of her. Then, so we will have the presentation for about maximum 1 hour and half an hour for discussion and answering the questions from our audience. So, Maria, please.
Yeah.
Ed.
Okay. Wonderful. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Adriano, for giving me the floor. So tonight we're gonna be talking about space renaissance at the United Nations, a personal journey from the year 2000 till 2025, with our guest Amalie Sinclair. So, this webinar actually is intended to provide both a short description of the personal journey of the presenters, Amalie Sinclair, and a comprehensive overview of the official SRI UN profile to date, moving from introduction to space development narratives at the millennium to early advisement around the third UNISPACE Conference in 2014, through to the establishment of SRI observer status at the COPUOS in 2023, and the recent initiative of the 18th SDG Space for All. The complexities of the 18th SDG can be readily defined with an inclusive humanistic rationale. However, these issues and topics will also be defined at political levels, taking into consideration current technological, economic, and societal trends. SRI seeks to define the objectives of the 18th SDG through reliance on universal values, ethics, and an expedient process of international interchange and engagement. The eventual parameters of the 18th SDG may be extensive, involving many insights and designated resources for equitable and productive outer space usage, and the progressions also of the civilian space industry. It is hoped that this brief webinar tonight will serve to inform and to generate input and participation for the SRI 18th SDG initiative. Let me introduce Mrs. Amalie Sinclair, our guest tonight. So, she was born in London in 1951. Her parents were highly progressive, and her childhood was marked by a process of self-education and exposure to culture and humanistic values. Her mother, named the painter Dora Holzhandler, introduced her to the concepts of Buddhist philosophy, and she studied with the extant Tibetan schools since the age of 16. Together with her husband, who is a software engineer, her family relocated to California, USA in 1984. She has been resident in the Bay Area during this intervening period, giving her the opportunity to view at close hand the advance of the remarkable technologies of societal and global interconnectivity. In the year 2000, she wrote and produced a millennium performance, which included over 50 dancers and musicians from several nations. In 2004, she prepared a forum called Space for Progress for congressional members in Washington, D.C. Over the past 25 years, she has been actively engaged in the development of equitable space policy, presenting several outlines at the lunar sciences communities. She joined the exemplary SRI engagement in 2016. Her interest lies in the UN-based narratives for outer space development and settlement, a work that has profound implication for the future of humanity. In 2025, she took up residence in London again, holding both US and UK citizenship. She hopes to be able to continue to participate in the preparation and establishment of the SRI 18th SDG initiative. Amalie, you have the floor.
Oh gosh, thanks.
So I will share your slide presentation. Just a moment. Okay, so I think you're seeing. Are you seeing?
Yeah, yes, I can see the slide.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's me in a hat. That's June. That's my first time to attend the COPUOS session. I was very impressed. I think it was very good underlying sentiments, and our program may be very possible. I'm quite optimistic. So there's a picture I took of me outside. It was pretty hot. Anyway, next slide, yes. Right. So my childhood was kind of pretty strange, really. My mother's a painter. You can see one of her works there. We lived in Kensington, near to the Holland Park. So this particular work is in the collection there. It's entitled A Mother and Child in Holland Park, but it didn't really look like that, but that was how she saw it. Anyway, she painted every day. And that's why I kind of grew up surrounded by her work. And she had a strong influence on me. And the other image is His Holiness the Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa. So, my mother introduced me to Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy when I was quite young, I think. And then, I traveled to the monastery. They built a monastery in Scotland, and the Karmapa came to London. And that's him doing a ceremony there. I mean, lots of people attended. But I haven't really followed the Tibetan Buddhism, there's an esoteric side to it, which is very symbolic. And then there's also a philosophical aspect, so Madhyamika Buddhism. The philosophy is what I think is really interesting. It's mostly the idea of minds generated, how the mind is generating awareness. And from that point, I think that our focus on cultural activities and philosophy and reaching a sort of core humanistic understanding is going to be very valuable, because it's not a political not a political issue or an economic issue, although, those aspects also are relevant, but it's really something perhaps connected with a global culture, but not to promulgate any particular religion or anything, but those were my key influences coming into the work that I've been doing in later years. So next slide. All right. I met my husband in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and we moved to Cambridge. He was intending to study. He thought he might become a vet like his father, who was a very famous vet. They wrote books about him in Yorkshire. Anyway, apart from that, yeah, we got to Cambridge, and Alan wasn't really sure. He thought perhaps he'd take up medicine, but a friend introduced him to a very significant group, I think, called the Epiphany Philosophers, which was run by a woman called Margaret Masterman. who was actually a student of Wittgenstein, a very famous Western philosopher. And Wittgenstein's, his theory was basically that, civilization, perhaps consciousness itself, is built around language. It's a language structure that creates the phenomena, or something of that type. Are much more complex. But anyway, what Margaret was doing, and the philosophers, they had a institution there called the Cambridge Language Research Unit, also quite well known, and I've included some links in the reference there. So Alan went to study with them, and I think it was it was before 1970. I'm not exactly sure when, but they taught him programming. They had the first computers. They had North Star computers, and they taught him COBOL, and he learned how to do this. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it actually had a profound influence on me as well. At that time, I was, studying Buddhist philosophy. One day, Alan came back from the language center there with a pack of cards, and it was entitled Deep Semantic Structure. Anyway, I laid these cards out on the floor, and to my astonishment, all of the categories, the spread, the verb, the tool, where the language fitted together, created hierarchies, a number of hierarchies, like 4 or 5 hierarchies. And at the top of the hierarchies, you had government and world, and very large categories, and at the bottom of the hierarchies were small individual categories, what people did. But they all led into the same streams. And I was absolutely astonished looking at this thing. I thought I had a moment of what they call satori there, because what I'd actually been studying in the Buddhist philosophy was something very similar, was with the Abhidharma philosophy, but the categorization of the human mind according to, temperament, engagement, moral issues, ethical issues. The way it was kind of categorized was very similar. I can't really explain this, but looking at this, and my insight at that moment was, yes, this semantic structure pack, this machine translation, this methodology of computational whatever, how computers might function and inform human society. This is a map, a Western map of human awareness. And I thought to myself, well, thinking, obviously it was very internal, but it seemed to me that the first thing that would happen once this became, generally used and disseminated was that these types of systems would be taken up by governments. Commerce, obviously, it was fantastic what happens, in the Silicon Valley, but to be taken up by governments as systems of government. And that's basically what I think has actually happened. So in 1984, we relocated from Cambridge to the United States. And that was just kind of sort of the beginning. There was a chap called Clive Sinclair had started making personal computers. Alan had learned computing. And we finally came because my son had a disability, hearing, profound hearing loss, and we needed a special education in America. So we got permission to emigrate, basically. Alan started working for company in Silicon Valley. And we moved ourselves over here. And that was how we got to America. Since become an American citizen, but I've gone back to London now anyway. So next slide, please. Adriana, next slide, yeah. All right, so with personal journey. So when we got here, 1984, basically so I was sort of following everything that was happening, you know, Silicon Valley all around. Alan was working there. And there I was in America trying to figure out how to turn the tap on and stuff like this, because I wasn't used to living in a different place. But anyway, we got here, and at the turn of the years, everybody was saying, this is millennium, this 2000, and there was discussion about singularity, this and that. Anyway, I decided to create a cultural program, which I did in celebration of the millennium. And I wrote that, and it was performed at the Marin Civic Auditorium. And that's one photograph. I have some photos, but that was one episode. So that was a lot of fun. We had some performers from all over the world, Mongolia and Thailand, India. Anyway, so that was, but I was never really sure what would happen next. I thought, well, you're on some sort of path now, but I didn't really know what it was. And, the trends, well, I mean, I guess everybody's lived through this, or most of us have. And that was the millennium, and things went on from there. So next slide, please. Okay. Now I've left something out. So what actually happened after 2000, after I made this cultural performance there, so I came across a flyer one day in the street advertising a political meeting, and it was a meeting for something that was called the United States Department of Peace, which Dennis Kucinich produced a bill 2001. He wanted to reestablish the United States Department of Peace. So I went to the meeting, and I felt I should really do something to help, because I never really heard of anything called the Department of Peace. I didn't understand how you could legislate a Department of Peace. I mean, I read George Orwell. I mean, it sounded very, it's a curious idea to me. Anyway, so I got in touch with Dennis and a woman called Marjorie Dixon Zamora, who was a professor there in America, and she was running a coalition. Anyway, Marjorie introduced me to a few people. Amongst them was Carol Rosen, who you might have heard of. She was Werner von Braun's secretary. And some other people. I got educated basically about space. They pretty much explained to me. And Carol said, well, the most important thing was the weaponization of space. At that point, I started to take the issues very seriously. In 2004, I put up a program in Washington, D.C. For the Department of Peace Coalition. And quite a lot of people came in. There was an Ambassador Jonathan Dean, who's not with us, but there was Pete Warden was there, and the I don't know. I can't go through a list, but anyway, the programs and the references. So it was very gratifying. They were talking about, weaponization, what could happen, what might happen, what is happening. And that was really the start point for me. That was the 2004. And this United States Institute of Peace, that was interesting. I was recommended by local Congressman Sam Farr. He said, well, you should do something with the USIP. And we nearly put a program together that was later on. But anyway, it's since changed hands, but it's still there. And so anyway, we sort of moving ahead then. So that was 2004. And that was basically how I got to the sort of start point of thinking that it was very important and that something should be done and something should be said, and where were the pathways and how could that be achieved. And since then, I've been continually working to try and reach a point where, some effect perhaps could be seen. So next slide, Adriano. So as Maria mentioned, we became we had official observer status was granted in 2023, but I was working with Adriano and Manuel Perez, who I met in DC as well. That was about 2017 or before. And that was, I think, when SRI started promoting, or at least, paying attention to the United Nations programs. Prior to that, 2014, I think, I don't know. I wrote some papers and things. 2014, I think, was an important moment as well. That was when Joe Pelton and others produced the Montreal Declaration. That was the second Manfred Latch conference that I attended on global space governance. And at that point, basically, they were saying, look, something needs to be done. There's a treaty, there's the United Nations. Everything's changed in the past 50 years. We've got a completely new dynamic. The situation is very different from the onset of the space age. And we need to, develop guidelines and platforms and, ways, methodologies to approach this, because it's going to be very big and it's going to be global. And the term in itself, global space governance, it's really quite something. It's a civilizational process, really. So COPUOS, they have the mandate. They're basically the only international forum in the world is the UN forum. It's the only forum that all nations really subscribe to. That's where the treaty, the Outer Space Treaty, is located. That's where the development has to happen. And we're going to have to make some sort of choice, I think, because things can go one way or another. And, obviously the UN is very excellent and their legal process is very excellent, and everything's done through consensus, through agreement, through dialogue. So it's really a way, I think, of getting through the political shadows, and you could almost say leaving past histories behind and getting into a new phase. And Adriano has very much stressed to me that civilian space development, that the civilian space economy, this is where the activity happens. you can have international agreements on other levels, but it's the building of the infrastructure, the creation is very inspiring. Civilian space development is like very inspiring, I think, for new generations. And the space economy is very huge. It's already very huge. I mean, not in itself, but the satellite economies are growing. And then there are many other potentials, including this artificial intelligence recently developed. So you've got a world now that is pretty much covered, more or less, by a comprehensive technological framework of communication. I mean, this has never happened, you know. I mean, this is absolutely, it's an evolutionary step. And what are we going to do with that? All right, next slide. Thanks, Adriano. All right, so here we've got the 18th Sustainable Development Goal, which informs all the others, really, if you want to use it in that way. There are questions around this. We want to create totalitarianism. Nobody's telling nations what to do, or what are their affiliations or allegiances or anything. But basically what it comes down to is that really everybody agrees with the 17 SDGs as they are. I mean, who wouldn't agree? We want everybody to be fed, and educated, housed. This is very important. We can't have a world with, deprivation and poverty and warfare is really unnecessary, and it's not really sustainable up to this point. But now, there's populations expanding. We have to look to a bit better techniques. So basically, I think what SRI is saying that I agree with very much is that space is informing the 17 SDGs, and that it's actually set up the 18th SDG that can be, designed and aligned in order that it can actually facilitate all else that is following there. And the UN, of course, has got some, to a certain extent, they've gone in this direction already. They're very much promoting space. They see how valuable it is. But they haven't taken this step, which is actually to create the organism that will do this. So we're suggesting that this should be the 18th Sustainable Development Goal. In particular, it's a sustainable development goal because we need space to be sustainable. It's going to fill up with debris and all kinds of sort of segregated assets. It's not really sustainable. It's going to create other situations. And the political situations are important, but I believe they can be contained, and there is a point of equilibrium in there that we're trying to reach that. Right, next slide. All right, so really this is what I've just been attempting to describe. So this upstream versus downstream technologies is important. As far as the UN goes, they've focused on downstream technologies. Basically, those are technologies that are coming from low Earth orbit to Earth, right? GPS and so on. Now, there are a number of other technologies. There are upstream technologies. Those are technologies that are building space in industrialization infrastructures that can carry further dimensions, such as the Lunar Settlement Program and a number of very advanced types of facilities, such as fast laser-based communications, space-based solar power. I don't know. The servicing and maneuverability of satellites is very important because they only have short lifespans, and you need to be able to fix them while they're up there, right? Building habitats, places for people to live in while they do research work. And research work is very important. It's like genetics, study of genetics, growing things, you know, medicine, plants, quantum engineering and chips that can be developed, all sorts of astonishing things that can be made in space because there's no gravity. This is a manufacturing hub, basically, for producing the technologies of a future world, you know, fusion, all sorts of things. So space needs to be usable, and not just usable in, you know, for downstream technologies, but the upstream technologies need to be taken into consideration and included in the whole paradigm of space development. While there's a Lunar Settlement Program is going ahead, the UN should follow suit by including the upstream technologies. In particular, they're important because upstream technologies, space industrialization, and a lot of it is extremely advanced, scientifically advanced. These also include what they call dual use assets. I mean, basically, any vehicle that can move a satellite can also disable a satellite, and so it goes on. You know, any particular asset that can do is proficient at a certain level, you know, that can also be used as an antagonistic value. So that, I think, is really what is the underlying principle of a space weapons ban. Is not necessarily to say you mustn't put weapons in space. Well, we know that anyway. The Outspace Treaty makes that fairly clear. But the space weapons ban itself is an instrument for, well, you say identifying, but it's a set of agreements of some kind of interchange that renders space science as an international theme rather than a segregated national and militarization theme. It's the segregation of the thing that is that's where the political element enters in. And I do appreciate that, you know, these types of technologies are very advanced. They're being developed in many countries. At the moment, it seems to be dividing up into sort of two factions, you know, there's what we say East-West, but it goes on. And it's something that really, I think, should be taken in hand because it's quite dangerous. And what it really represents is that it's going to cause the stagnation of the space economy. It's going to you know, a lot of repercussions. It will interfere with the Lunar Settlement Program. It's not a particularly useful path, and there are other paths available that still allow countries, you know, discretionary powers, but that also uphold internationalized alignment and interchange. So we're just trying to sort of shift the needle in there towards the interchange aspects rather than the militarization aspects, which is fairly ambitious, but I think is possible. I was very optimistic attending the COPUOS meeting. I felt encouraged, and that I felt there was good feeling with all delegates that they would like to see greater access and greater availability, and not only for the large powers, but for all countries to participate in the scientific advancement and education, learning, and facilitation worldwide. All right, next slide. Oh, well, the lunar landscape. So I don't know how long it will take to build this and how it will be built, and if it will eventually be a fully internationalized program, which would be best. But getting there, that's kind of where we got to now. And over these years ahead, is the task of this upcoming generation is to build this, to build the lunar settlement. And between now and then, which might be, I mean, I don't know, I would say probably 20 years or something down the road before you really have a large community living there, but other people might shorter time frame. But anyway, over the next decade and or so, there's a kind of a political watershed, if you like. That's where we need to get past, and that's basically to do with the industrialization process and how the issue of dual use assets and interchange is going to be dealt with, which has to happen at the UN. It can't happen anywhere else. That's the only venue that is available really to the international community. And so far, the discussions are very equitable, very realistic, and very logical, moving forward step by step. And I don't really see any particular barrier, but I think that it needs to be, handled quite carefully, but with real sympathy. That I don't think anybody wants to have a perpetual warfare, a society where humanity is subjected to it's really something I think that is of the past, but how those identities get transformed into other identities is really the question. But I think they can be. I mean, sorry, I'm talking ahead of myself a bit. It's very ambitious, and it's been attempted before. People have said enough. We can't have this anymore. Human society shouldn't be subjected to this, and that's why the UN was formed. But now there's actually a medium, which I think is the outer space medium, which is where the pivot of this awareness can actually start to be justified and examined in a very real way. So, yes, well, all right, Adriano, next slide, yes. All right, so civilizational prospects, can we do this? Can we, get get past the turning point into a newer phase and start to create better stability and better expectation? I think it's very possible. Say science in the service of humanity, which everybody really understands. How can scientists participate? what is the nature of non-alignment, and within all this, the freedom of the individual, the freedom of nations to choose their own paths, and within those nations, the freedom of the individual, to achieve a measure of human happiness. And this, despite all cultural and political assignations, and despite the enormous intellectual, the concerns, the complexity of arguments, despite all of this, there's still the underlying humanistic value, the aspiration of humankind to somehow move past that point, that line where we can get into a future that doesn't necessarily include, what has been carried all the way through the Industrial Revolution up to the present day. It isn't going to carry these overtones, these somber overtones. But I think it is very much a theme of the moment. I mean, as everybody knows, the military budgets are enormous. No money is ever given for development, or very little. I mean, aid programs are there, they work, but it's not, from my point of view, it's not altogether logical, because as human mind is creating this situation, human mind can actually create the solution. I mean, I guess that's kind of naive, but I do think that this is possible. All right, next slide. So it's a very serious matter, stability and security. You can see as nations are going to war, and because they, stability and security, how can they ensure that? I personally, I don't think that the human beings are particularly aggressive. I mean, they've got bad history, humanity, it's tremendous suffering, but is this kind of suffering really necessary for human development? I mean, some might say, well, yes, part of human nature, the aggressive, humanity is aggressive by nature, but I don't actually think that's true. I think that basically what it is just that the resources are limited, nations need to develop, they have to have economies that can provide for citizens. It is all very difficult. There's global economy, and that is what causes the stresses, I think, for very often. Well, anyway, not to digress too much, but here, so a top-down approach, consensus and agreement. Now, basically, what I'm trying to describe there is the fact that there are actually two lines of approach. A top-down approach is what you might call national leadership, but this is really concerns the individuals, the people that are running the nations of this world. You say top-down approach, you're talking about the presidents of the various countries, the people that are actually at the pinnacle, and they're the ones that are generating policy to a certain extent. The national leaders come together and they say, well, yes, we think we've reached a watershed. We're building stuff in space. We've got AI. We've got, large industrial programs. How are we going to balance this out and reach some kind of a equitable level of understanding amongst ourselves? And then you have all the disarmament issues and the nuclear issues. It's a huge conversation, but basically at the top levels, at the very highest levels, I think it's, in a way, it's a sort of personal conversation amongst the world leaders. And I think that if there is a sentiment that something should be done, and I think it's quite possible because it's very obvious, you're reaching that sort of point now where, it's either going to go one way or another. If their sentiment is there, then I think that politicians can work their way through it, and also with the disarmament start and the various treaties and so on. The grassroots approach, that's the other side of the paradigm, is really what is the public looking at. I mean, they're going to see the lunar landings. They'll hear the national leaders talking about space for development and about industry and so on. And this generation is going to be brought up within this kind of climate, and they will see this happening all around them. So the grassroots approach is, I think, very important. And people watch films, they listen to, what's being said. If the view of the leaders is that the narrative for discussion is available, I think the public sentiment would be very much in favor of that. And with that kind of trend, then global equations, well, a lot of those can get ironed out. I mean, I think economic equations are not so difficult, productivity, but then you've got, and Africa's like enormous, the huge landmass of Africa. I mean, there's development of Africa is going to make an enormous difference in food production and things. So, and this is all coming up. So if we talk about civilization in the next generations, it's very big. We haven't been there before. We've never had a world like this. This world has never existed before. And now I think it's up to us who kind of came in at the tail end of the past, and we're looking to the future to kind of help lay it out a bit and design and bring forward our ideas and talk about where we're going. I think that would be very helpful. So the COPUOS framework is basically it's a civil society framework. The delegates are the representatives from each nation. So it's an international framework. Then there's also PAROS, the Prevention of Arms Race in Outer Space, which is part of the disarmament body. So between the COPUOS and PAROS, I think there is some alignment, and I think one entity will feed into the other, although it's a kind of discrete process. I think it probably does happen. We've been told really that security issues are not something that is addressed by COPUOS. That's addressed by the Security Council or somewhere else, right? But it's not really separate. It's as we're framing the 18th SDG, we're looking at how some of these elements might inform the non-proliferation agreements and disarmament forums and so on. In particular, the space situational awareness, which is very important for debris mitigation. Adriano's been writing about this as quite something. In fact, what I find really extraordinary as a layperson is the fact that the laser, these laser utilities, laser-based utilities, can identify very small pieces of debris, like just a few millimeters across. It can be identified. The orbit can be tracked, and they can actually be pushed. You can use a laser to push a piece of debris so that it burns up in near Earth orbit. And Keith Henson described this as a vacuum cleaner in space. It's still to be built, but they could really clean up the orbit there. Oh, anyway, I think that's the end of my talk. Have I got to the end, Adriano? Oh, here. This is an important philosophical point. Space Renaissance promotes habitats, and they're actually looking and describing and continuing this remarkable concept from Gerard O'Neill developed, the large, very large habitats could be built using materials from asteroids and so on, is space manufacturing, which I find, is, I'm not saying it not impossible, but it's a very, very far-reaching idea. And we don't really know where the boundaries are. One program that's been put forward is a zero gravity habitat for investigating gravity environments. There's small scale things called I think it's called Island Zero. It's Jerry Stone's I was working with him on that, but there's basically small rotating habitat that creates a zero gravity environment. The reason being that the astronauts' health, so basically it's not really very good for people to live in zero gravity. The human body doesn't appreciate the zero gravity condition. So how to develop gravity in space, which can be done with certain types of habitat and in other ways. So I think that the gravity studies will be an important step towards the large habitat realization. And it's a program that goes on for many, many generations and right on into the distant future, in an evolutionary program, if you like. And somewhere along the way there, we may find out that, there's a boundary or some particular, attribute, something that it take a long time to solve a lot of these issues. But all the time, moving in that direction, we're learning, humanities learning and working together, I think is very, very, very good way to do this. So technocracy and totalitarianism. Well, we're right at the beginning of a technocracy. We've just really entered into it. We're beginning to understand, there's mass populations, mass identities, and government control. And how can all of that be handled? But it's I think that it's a very if you like, human culture is very disseminated, and I can't see why we should fall into the totalitarianism that Orwell envisions, unless we have a situation where nation by nation is such fragmentation and isolation and such authoritarian oversight that the only potential for the masses of humanities living under these regimes is exactly that, which we want to avoid. I think probably everybody else does as well. Yeah, well, the philosophy of humanism. This is what maybe will carry us through some point at which humanity itself agrees, yes, we've got to whatever this next phase of human evolution, the next phase of a human civilization, what is that going to look like, and how are we going to come together to create that? And we really need stability. The world can't afford warfare, and it's you know, it's not affordable. And impermanence is you know, that's our condition, and we're only here for a little while. And but you know, everything stretches away into the infinite future. But yes. Oh, well, thank you then. I think that's my talk, basically. Oh, there's some references. There were some more things as well, but I just went through the years. This item here, 2008, Basic Space Law. The reason why I put it up there is because I actually thought, oddly enough, it was very similar to the working draft I created in 2004 was an experimental model. But when the Japan created their basic space law, I thought, well, that was applications based. So that I don't know. And there are other references before 2004, in particular the 2001 Department of Peace. That was the inspiration for my DC program, 2004. Right, then there's a couple more pages of references, but I don't know if anybody will go through. All right, thank you. Oh, and there's another.
Sorry.
Yeah, there are 3 pages, I think.
Okay. Well, so thank you very much, Amalie,
Right. Thank
for
you,
your beautiful
Adriano.
lecture. Okay. And so, okay. So I don't know, Maria, do we have any question from?
Yeah, I'm checking on YouTube. Basically, no, in the chats, no.
Okay. So I don't know if we still have, no, I think Mahad
No, Mahad left
is
already.
gone. Mahad,
Yeah, he had to leave, so I've been rambling on.
okay, okay.
Mahad left. So anyway, what is the next step, Adriano? How do you see the next step at the UN? How do you see this?
Oh, thank for your question. So you are interviewing me. You are the
Yes,
interviewer
yes.
this
Now I
night.
look at you.
Okay.
We've still got a little time.
No, well, I have taken a few notes while you were speaking.
Ask me a question then.
Yes, because yeah, I think that the most
You want to
important.
put the slideshow down? You got is it still broadcasting the slideshow? You could close it.
Okay, but yeah, maybe I will stop sharing.
All right, there.
Okay, good. I think the most important thing that you mentioned at the end, at the end of your presentation, the vision, the time vision, the strategy. What is to be intended as a long time goal, and what is to be intended as a very urgent, immediate goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know that from our 2021 Congress, the third Congress in 2021, we have issued the 12 goals, our 12 goals to be pursued and promoted towards 2025, 2026. Now we are there. And if we look at those goals, yeah, I think it could be interesting to
Yeah,
have,
you put the 18th SDG was one of the goals in
yes, yes, yes,
2021. That was,
yes,
so
the
you got a
SDG,
long way with that already. Yeah.
the 18 SDG was one of our 12 goals.
Yes.
And we can maybe have a look at those goals and to see what we have done. What
Yeah.
if we had some impact on the reality or not?
Well, you're always very much in advance of what happens. So, you know, the recent discussion about
So
AI and energy is like really,
yeah, I can say that many things are going ahead since 2021. For instance, yeah, the first point was not going back, but going forward to the moon. Develop proper industrial infrastructure to produce fuel in space from lunar and asteroidal materials. Also mining resources such as water, rare earths, and precious metals and helium-3. And I think at least this point
yeah.
made some progress because we have now the Artemis consortium. And the last news is that Portugal signed the Artemis Accord yesterday. So I think we have now maybe 55 or 56 countries in the Artemis consortium for the moon. So this is definitely a step forward. I hope that technology will keep the pace, and we will have the moon lander, and we will have the moon vehicle, and all these things that are not very steady right now, but we hope that they
Yeah.
can develop.
I would like to point out, Adriano, that there's the industrialization is expensive, and my
Yeah.
personal opinion is that there should be specialized financial instruments developed to pay for space industry so that it's not a drain on the
Yes.
terrestrial industry. And
But let me say that money, I think that money are not such important now because, yeah, let's see how much we are spending for weapons for that is crazy, and it's a lot of
yeah, well,
3 trillion per year spent
all right.
on the world
Or how much the
for
AI
killing.
industry is worth.
So I think that if our governments can find those money to produce weapons, they can also find money for space. I'm sure of that. They can
Well,
do.
it's the
So
space.
it's just a political decision. Money are no
Yeah,
money
but the
is
thing,
no more
Adrian,
gold. Is no more gold. We
yeah,
don't need gold to make money. Yeah,
yeah,
we only
well,
need computers to make monies, nothing else. So this is
no,
how
well, it's like a sort of immaterial
yeah.
thing. The thing is that the space industry, the economy of the space industry is actually quite small. I mean, it can be funded. You know, it's like the infrastructure is not a large infrastructure. It's like building a subway or something. It's like
Yes, yes. And then, okay, then we had,
quite small. They're quite small things that need to be built.
yeah, and even when you mentioned the project by Jerry Stone, Island Zero, that is a demonstrator, is intended to be a demonstrator of the Jerry O'Neill Island One,
Yes.
a very much bigger thing. But
Yeah.
that what Jerry is trying to do since several years, and now maybe somebody is paying attention to him, is to start working on that, to start working with simulated gravity. it's a huge delay. There is very much urgency to start working with simulated gravity because a rotating station by means of centrifugal force can generate 1 g, the same gravity that we have on Earth. It can be done even on a small rotating thing, maybe some hundreds meter diameter or a little bit more. But however, this is very, very urgent to start. And it was one of our goals in 2021, and it will be very much stressed also in our now in our fourth Congress. This is there are two things that are fundamental to start living and working in space. One is simulated gravity, and the other one is protection from radiation. These two things needs a very much better priority. It was so.
Yeah, would
in
be nice if there was
2021,
a international program, should be fully international program. That would be very good for human health. Yeah.
Yeah, so you see, we had it. Enhance life protection in space, radiation from, and starts experimenting with simulated gravity. Can be done by rotating connected modules as an initial method. And we need to start experimenting to understand what is the condition, the living condition in an artificial gravity, a simulated gravity environment. That is very urgent. And we will not stop talking about that. And at COPUOS, we keep on proposing these things. And even if in the perspective of a possible working group, 18 SDG working group at COPUOS, this will be one of the key items, the key topics in this
It'd be
work.
wonderful. Be open to all nations to participate. Be wonderful.
Yes. And for sure we are writing in these days. This day we are writing our flyer for the next session, in the February session of the Scientific and Technical Subcommittee. And these points will have a good evidence in our flyer. So our flyer will also include some comments to the ATLAC, the word of ATLAC, and other things. So, let me say the space debris recovery and reuse also saw some progress, because I think more people are aware of this problem, but I think still a few people are aware of the business that could come from solving this problem. And what we are saying, what we are promoting, is to start recovering and reuse debris rather than destroying them or simply throwing them to burn or entering in the atmosphere. So we are stimulating, we are promoting technologies to recover at least the large debris. There are a lot of large debris that can be recovered and reused. So this is another important thing that we, and for sure, the life protection in space and simulated gravity have not seen very much advance, but we have to go ahead. And also on the other points, produce food in space, and space safety, and also I think a very good new topic is okay. We cannot say it is new, because space tourism society, our friend and member Sam Coniglio, is talking since about 20 or 30 years about ergonomics, about beautiful environments in space, talking about the conditions for living, for civilians to live in space. We don't only need to survive in space, We need to thrive in space. We need to flourish in space. This is an aspect that we started to develop since at least 1 year. Also thanks to Howard Bloom and his concept of flamboyance. It's a very interesting thing because he make the comparison with nature. Nature is not greedy. Nature is very generous. Nature works with the multiplication of different experiments and in a extreme parallel way. And nature doesn't want to save. Like Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, that wanted to save everything. No, nature is not so. Nature spends a lot of her money, and in a large concept of flamboyance, where the beauty is considered a primary requirement. Not a side thing, but a primary requirement. The beauty is fundamental, even in our space habitats. We must build beautiful space habitats where we have a green environment and flowers and gardens and everything that make our life glorious, not only to survive. And that this discussion brought to the light the concept of redundancy. Because if you see on the space station, just to make an example, the life support system are designed for 7 people. But often on the ISS, we have 10 people. They suffer for carbon dioxide. They have heat ages and very, very hard to live there in that condition. So what does it mean? That so far, the design was very, very greedy, was made for saving money because they were concerned about money. Oh my God, money for space. Wasted money. Not for the weapons. The weapons, okay, for the weapons we spend everything what is to be spent. Do you understand that we maybe humanity need a psychiatric treatment? I don't know. Okay. Well, okay. So yes, I think that some of these points made an advancement, and for sure, the concept of civilian space development that was so dear to our dear Manuel Perez. You remember, this goal of the kicking off the civilian space development was his key goal. And Manny and myself, we had many discussions about that, and we completely agree on that 100%, and try to develop and to put it to bring it ahead and so on. And yeah, I think that there is from 2021 to nowadays we have some progress of this concept of the civilian space
beginning to take shape, is beginning to
yes
yeah, right.
And can we say that is also just a little bit due to our action?
Well, we're standing there saying, make the 18th SDG. We're doing this. We're standing there doing this.
Yes.
We keep on, yeah.
Well, okay. Stop. Yeah. So, Maria, if we don't have any question, maybe, I don't know, maybe you have some question for Amalie? Could be?
No, it's fine. Oh, this is good.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Amalie, do you want to add something?
Not really. It's, I do wonder. It's finding the kind of level of awareness that is something that the UN can kind of absorb and assimilate and work with. It So I think it's difficult. I think they're available. It's accessible, but it's like a piece of music. You have to just hit the right note with them somehow, and then the pieces fall into place. And I think that this 18th SDG, it may be seen as a very expedient way out of a very complicated.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah.
And okay, I don't want to say anything because you know with a little bit of superstition, you know, I don't want to to fire these possibilities, but I think we could see something new on the side of a leadership of the 18 SDG coalition, a new working
Strategy.
yeah, direction group or something like that. Something is incubating, and I don't want to say
Something is definitely incubating. I know I can feel this. I'm
yeah,
not sure what are you
yeah,
incubating?
yeah.
Are
Okay.
you incubating a new group for SRI or a new or a working group at the UN or what?
No. The good thing is that is not me. I am not
Oh.
incubating anything, but some person started to manifest their availability to lead this the coalition, and
Yeah. There's some energy coming towards us a bit
yeah.
of
So maybe
interested parties. Yeah.
we can restart the work after the 2025 pause, let me say, of the 18 SDG events and
Yeah, I thought that would be a good idea. I thought maybe the one thing we could do would be to prepare an outline for an expert working group, an outline of what we expected them to do
this
that.
is one of the key actions on that
Yeah, I've been talking to
topic.
Mahad and Gulen about this. Yeah.
Excellent.
What would be the expectations of the working group? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So
Okay.
thank you very much, Amalie.
All right. Thank you, Adriano.
Maria. Thank you, Maria. Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Maria. Bye now.
everybody who attended this webinar. And I invite everybody to submit an abstract to our Congress. I will put the link in the chat right now. Just give me a few more seconds to do that. It's very important. This, of course, this is another. Okay. Then. So I have put in the chat the link where you can submit an abstract for a paper for our Congress. The deadline is 31st March. So you have more than 2 months to do that. So we hope to have many papers at our Congress in June. Thank you very much, everybody.
Great. Yes.
See you next time. Next time is the 19, 19 next Monday. And I think we will have Frank White. Is that true, Maria?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to the
Ciao.
next.
Good
Ad
evening.
astra.